The show opens up in 2029 AD as Georgie, a medical examiner, gets ready to pick up his daughter, Sonia. In this futuristic world, androids serve humans in various positions, even replacing them in many menial jobs. Currently, Georgie leaves all his work to his robot, Basil. When he arrives at his ex-wife's house, Alla, he hands her the permission letter for their child to travel abroad. Although Georgie is happy to see Sonia, he's quite disappointed that his son, Igor, is nowhere to be seen. He argues with Alla for letting their son go when she knows it's his turn to spend time with the kids. But Alla points out that Igor is already a teenager, so he does whatever he wants. Unbeknownst to them, the teenager Igor is just hiding nearby and watching his now separated parents talk. When he's sure that his father is no longer in sight, the teenager walks away to meet with his best friend. Unfortunately, before he can reach his destination, some bullies notice him. Igor tries to avoid confrontation by running, but the bullies catch him and take his bag. Fortunately, Igor gets hold of his spray paint and sprays it on his bully's eyes before running away. Later, he tells his best friend they should hope his family's flight to Australia doesn't get cancelled. Meanwhile, Georgie tells Sonia they can fly a kite with Igor when they return from Australia. Sonia reveals they will be gone for over a month because his stepfather and mother have got jobs there. Enraged, Georgie confronts Alla for lying about the trip and declares that their daughter will stay with him. Meanwhile, Victor, the executive of a corporation named Kronos, heads to his office to receive a very important delivery. Kronos is the leading robot sales company in Russia and introduces the best bots from the world's leading manufacturers. Frequently trying to outdo their last models, Kronos always has new and upgraded robots that can provide different services for human needs. Here, Victor meets with his technical director, Igor, to show him what he just bought, and two staffs bring in the new robot that Victor imported. He tells Igor that the robot is not mass-produced but a concept never officially released. Everyone in the room is in awe when they see the beautiful robot named Arisa. Victor then lays out the specialties of their new robot, pointing out that its behavior is run through a special quantum processor, which makes it able to imitate free will up to certain actions. When they leave the room, one of the two staff, Sergei, who has been waiting outside, enters the room to check the new robot. The other staff reminds Sergei that his girlfriend is pregnant, but he still enters the office with malicious intent. As he walks towards Arisa, he knows there are no cameras there and hence nobody will know what he is about to do. Sergei then boldly walks to the new robot and grabs its breast. Arisa warns him that he's not allowed to touch taboo zones and reminds him to wait until charging is completed, and then log on as a family user. However, Sergei doesn't care and still grabs and kisses Arisa, so the robot pushes him hard enough that he falls to the floor. Enraged, he gets angry and more aggressive, so Arisa grabs and snaps Sergei's neck, killing him instantly. Few seconds later, Sergei's friend, Yuri, walks into the room, and after noticing the scene, shoots the robot. Victor and Igor hear the gunshot, so they return to the office immediately. When they find the staff shaking on the floor, they ask him what happened and where Arisa is. Yuri replies that the robot left of her free will after killing Sergei. However, Victor gets angrier and reminds him that bots don't kill humans. Following this, Arisa wanders the building wearing the coat she took from another robot and finds a place where she can finish charging. To help them with their problem, Victor calls his head of security, Gleb, who suggests Yuri that to lie that Sergei died from a heart attack. After Igor says that bots tend to finish charging by default, Victor asks for the power grid to be cut off. Meanwhile, Victor's guards look for Arisa everywhere in the building but fail to find her. Outside, Gleb pays a lot of money to Vadim, the ambulance driver, and tells him that Sergei died from a heart attack. Unknown to all of them, Arisa is sitting inside the ambulance, charging herself. Elsewhere, after getting legal advice, Georgie plans to return Sonia to her mother when he suddenly sees robots taking a body from an ambulance into the morgue. Suspecting something fishy, he leaves Sonia in the car and talks to Vadim. The ambulance driver tells him that the corpse died of a heart attack. Georgie then tells Vadim he will do the post-mortem after dealing with a family matter. In the meantime, Sonia leaves the car and walks to the ambulance where she sees Arisa. Just as the robot finishes charging, Sonia tugs on her clothes to get her attention. When Arisa looks at her, Sonia gets surprised and loses her balance. The robot then offers her hand to help the kid up, and accidentally, the program registers Sonia as Arisa's first-level user. When Arisa sees Sonia's hand has a small wound, she looks for some medication. But while her back is turned towards the kid, Georgie returns and takes Sonia away. Later at his ex-wife's home, Georgie takes back the permission letter he handed to Alla. He tells her that their kids need a father, so he can't let her take them away. Afterwards, when Igor returns home, he gets angry as he discovers they're no longer leaving. He goes to the morgue to confront his father, but Georgie refuses to give in. Instead, he calls someone to help him file a lawsuit for child custody modification. While inspecting Sergei's body, he discovers that the victim didn't die of a heart attack. He immediately calls Vadim, telling him that Sergei's spine is broken, so if Vadim doesn't return in an hour, he will call the police. Soon afterwards, Vadim returns and negotiates with Georgie, and agrees to pay the forensic expert $300,000. As soon as he gets the money, Georgie contacts his legal advisor to process his kids' custody papers, but he is interrupted by a call from Alla. To his surprise, the ex-wife agrees that their children will stay with him. When he returns to Alla's house, she tells him he can stay with the kids while she and Leo are away. Georgie then thanks his ex-wife for her trust, and says he won't fail her. Back at Kronos, Victor is still angry because they haven't found Arisa, but Igor tells him he found out what was deleted from Arisa's recorded documents. He then advises Victor to call the police for help before showing him a video from earlier that day. The video shows Arisa attacking someone inside a laboratory. Panicked, Igor exclaims that they may have brought to the only killer bot in the world to Russia. Later that night, Sonia sees Arisa standing outside her window. In the next scene, a human and robot are out and about on a date in a restaurant. Outside, a young man watches the human-robot couple. Curiously, he has a hidden camera that telecasts his visuals live to someone else. Suddenly, someone orders him to follow the man who just left the restaurant with his robot. The mysterious voice reminds the young man that memory block comes first, but does not expand what he meant. Following this, the young man follows his human and robot target in a dark alley. Suddenly springing into action, he pushes the man aside and sprays paint over the robot's eyes. The robot's owner desperately tries to stop the attacker from doing any further damage. Just when the attacker is about to stab the robot, the man puts himself in the middle and gets stabbed instead. The voice then orders the young attacker to flee from the scene of the crime. In the next scene, Sergei's fiancée, Galia, reports her missing fiancé to the cyber crimes department. She says she first went to the police, but they sent her to CCD when they found out Sergei works at Kronos. There, the detectives look for Sergei using the number they got from Galia, and find out he's already in the morgue. Stunned by this news, Galia refuses to believe what she's hearing, while the detectives try their best to calm her down. Following this, Detective Varlamov calls Georgie and tells him he wants to see Sergei's body. Meanwhile, Georgie wants to take Sonia to work, but the kid says she'd like to stay at home. On the other hand, Igor doesn't want to go to school, so his best friend takes him to his father's apartment. After Georgie leaves, Sonia plays with Arisa, who she has dressed up like her, and soon discovers that Arisa can imitate voices. After a while, Marina, Alla's friend, comes over and asks Sonia where Georgie is. Arisa imitates Georgie's voice to save Sonia from the situation, and says he's in the bathroom. When Arisa finds out Sonia's parents are separated, she pats Sonia's head and comforts her. Elsewhere, Detective Varlamov arrives at the morgue where Georgie refuses to show him the body without a warrant. The detective says he understands that rules are rules, but adds that he can easily tell when humans are lying. Later, Georgie meets up with Vadim to tell him about the detective's visit earlier. He tells him he has decided to turn himself in, but Vadim stops him and says he should think about his kids and what will happen to them if he dies. The ambulance driver reminds Georgie that there are influential people behind, but the forensic expert says he will no longer listen to Vadim's advice. In Kronos, Victor tells Sergei's fiancée that she can return to work after giving birth. He adds that there's nothing for her to worry about because the company will pay off her mortgage. When the detectives contact Galia to give a statement about Sergei's death, she says she'll not give any statement because it won't change anything. When the scene shifts, Igor's bullies find his best friend and ask him where Igor is. To avoid trouble, his best friend tells them about his whereabouts. Then he messages Igor saying his father is going to the apartment he is staying in, and advises him to leave as soon as possible. However, Igor comes out. He's surprised that his bullies are waiting for him. He somehow manages to escape them, but then bumps into a girl who accidentally spills cola on him. The girl, Jana, tells Igor to come to Bot Net Club to bring her the soda he owes. At Kronos, Igor has trouble looking for Arisa as even with a tracker, the robot is refusing to answer his calls. So, to track the advanced robot, he writes a code and picks the right frequency until Arisa is forced to answer his calls. When they finally pin her location, Victor immediately sends the head of his security team to where Arisa is. On the other hand, while playing with Sonia outside, Arisa removes the tracker from her body and puts it inside a nearby truck. By the time Igor comes home, the robot has already brought his daughter back. Sonia then tells Arisa to log her brother on, so the robot registers Igor as her second-level user. As a deal, Sonia agrees not to tell Georgie that Igor came home early if he promises not to say anything about their new robot. In the following scene, a news report says that the Liquidators, an extremist group associated with vandalism and rioting, have started attacking robots on the streets. The group uses something sharp to strike the robot in the power unit, and then removes the machine's memory block. Meanwhile, the spray paint conveys to the world that humanizing bots is vicious and perverse. After listening to the news, Georgie goes to the police station to tell them what he knows about Sergei. Before he can talk to anybody, Gleb warns Georgie to think about his next actions. Worried about his kids, the forensic expert immediately comes home to check on them. Just then, his ex-wife Alla calls to ask how the kids are doing. It turns out that Alla didn't leave the country and is staying with her friend, Marina. The two women have been planning to wait for Georgie to mess things up so they can use it against him. Elsewhere, after catching the culprit in the stabbing incident, Detective Varlamov interviews the suspect, Kirill. He says that even if Kirill's case belongs to a different department, he might help if the suspect tells him who's giving him orders. Instead of cooperating, Kirill says what he did was just the beginning, and that things will only get worse. Later that day, Igor goes to Botnet to meet Jana, where she introduces him to her brother, Bars, who doesn't seem so happy to see the two together. While Igor is having fun, his best friend approaches him with the former's bullies and they face off in the toilet. However, Igor has no chance. It's only him against 3 people. Fortunately, Bars comes to his rescue and the two manage to fend off the bullies. When the fighting is over, Igor's best friend apologizes to him and said he didn't want to bring the bullies, but he had no choice. Next, Bars takes Igor to the rooftop and welcomes him to Botnet. When Jana, who has been looking for them, arrives at the spot, she takes a towel and wipes the blood off Igor's face. When Igor comes home, Georgie asks him where he's been. The teenager says he doesn't have to say anything to his father since they'll be leaving in a month anyway. Suddenly, Igor's bully, Kalyan, barges in with his father and threatens them that they will call the police. He says he will send Igor and Georgie to prison for what happened to his son. However, the forensic expert grabs the man's arm so hard he breaks it. After the man and his son leave, Georgie receives a message from CCD to release Sergei's body at 9 a.m. the next day. With no other option left, the forensic expert goes to the morgue and uses spray paint to create the symbol of the Liquidators. Then he stabs his robot in the power unit to destroy its memory block before burning the entire place down. In the meantime, Arisa watches over Sonya and sees Alla's photo. Later, the robot changes into Alla's clothes and then walks to a sleeping Georgie. She takes his hand and logs him on as the main user, exclaiming that the family is now complete. Meanwhile, Victor sees the video of Arisa putting the tracker inside the truck. He tells Igor to make a bot that they can show to his father-in-law in a few days, or they will both be in trouble. In the next scene, a malfunctioning robot is in front of a pharmacy. Someone comes to check on the robot after getting a report from the people who saw it. The man then calls and reports that it's the same robot that belongs to Nikolai, Georgie's father. When Georgie wakes up, he finally comes face to face with Arisa as he notices the bot playing with his daughter. Even when Sonya says Arisa is her bot, the forensic expert is determined to find Arisa's owner. He also asks the bot to take off the dress she's wearing because it belongs to his ex-wife. Arisa agrees but reminds Georgie that he should take off his jacket because there's a bit of nitro solvent on it, which is toxic to humans. Outside the house, Alla is waiting inside her car with Marisa. They see the kids, Georgie and Arisa, not knowing that the latter is a bot. They then go inside the house and install hidden cameras everywhere to monitor what's happening inside. Later, after receiving a call from tech support, Georgie picks up his father's robot. He drops Igor off at school, but just as his father drives off, Igor leaves the premises to meet Jana. Following this, the teenager arrives at Botnet, but they turn him away. As he walks away, Jana pulls him into a hidden spot and says it is a good time for them to meet his bot. Net will rally that night where only members are allowed to join, along with a bot. Jana says Bars worries about her safety, so she can't just be with anybody. She then says she doesn't want Igor to get in trouble, but the teenager says he will bring a bot to the rally. Meanwhile, the morgue's owner contacts Georgie to tell him about the fire. He tells the detectives that Georgie has family matters to attend to, and will be late. After noticing the spray paint, the owner suspects the Liquidators burned down the morgue, so he blames the detectives for not dealing with those people. On the other hand, Detective Varlamov says it's an imitation of arson, a way to get rid of the body, the bot, and other evidence. When they see that the bots still have their memory chips, they realize it's not the Liquidators who burned the place down. In the meantime, Georgie arrives at the tech support office to pick up his father's robot, Alex. Upon request, tech support also checks Arisa to find out who her real owner is. But they say Arisa is a strange robot model not registered to anyone. Hence, Georgie asks tech support to take Arisa because he doesn't have time to go to the CCD or the police to find the bot's owner, and eventually a staff agrees to help him. Following this, Georgie takes Arisa and puts her in a container with the other malfunctioning robots. Sonya insists Arisa belongs to her, but he tells her that maybe Arisa's owner is waiting to get her back. Heartbroken, Sonya runs to Arisa, not noticing the truck about to hit her. Fortunately, the bot moves at an incredible pace and managed to save the kid. Noticing all this, Georgie takes the bot back to his home. That night, Victor attends a meeting with his father-in-law and owner of Kronos, Alexei. Alexei proposes the early pension program and says it will let people retire early and let robots do their jobs. However, Victor says that Arisa, the superbot they're developing, can detect and interpret human emotions. He adds they can soon work as doctors, teachers, and more. When the other attendees ask to see the prototype, Victor says they're still testing the robots. After the meeting, Alexei reminds Victor that they will soon start financing once the minister signs the early retirement program. And once they have the money, they will begin getting robots, even if they are not from Kronos. Alexei tells Victor he only has 2 days to prepare the superbot, or he's done. Elsewhere, Georgie drops off Sonya at the house and leaves her with Arisa. While Sonya plays doctor, Alice sees from the hidden cameras that Arisa is only a bot. Meanwhile, Igor asks his best friend to help him steal a robot. The robot they want to target is the one begging for money in the subway. When the robot starts making noise, Igor's best friend runs away, leaving the teenager behind. Later, Igor's best friend asks him if he's now working for the liquidators, which makes the teenager angry, and he replies he doesn't want to be his best friend anymore. Later that day, Detective Varlamov talks to his superior, a colonel. He believes Georgie is the only way to solve the case of Sergei, and says the victim died in Kronos, but Georgie lied in the medical papers and said that the cause of death was a heart attack. The colonel tells him to drop the case and just focus on Kirill's case because he already wants to cooperate. The colonel then says Kirill was in initiation for wanting to join the liquidators, but killed a man in the process. Frustrated, Detective Varlamov later tells his team to release the footage of the man who burned the morgue. That evening, Georgie returns Alex to his father and tells him to get a new bot since Alex is always malfunctioning. Afterward, Georgie goes back to the morgue. The owner thinks the detectives are right when they said it's not the liquidators who burned the place down. Georgie says he still wants to work there, but the owner says he's free to go. In the next scene, Igor receives a call from his grandfather asking him to look for his robot, Alex. Nikolai says he told Alex to buy him some medicine, but he hasn't come home. When the teenager finds Alex, the robot is malfunctioning again. He returns to his grandfather's house and gives him the medicine he requested. When Nikolai looks for his bot, Igor says he can't find him. However, the teenager takes the robot to the rally and gives him to Bars. Bars hands him a knife and tells him to remove the bot's chip. Igor thinks twice before doing what he's asked, and when he finally stabs the knife in Alex's memory block, he accidentally cuts himself, splattering blood on Alex's shirt. Next, Jana puts a mask over Igor's head before they do the rally. The liquidators tie ropes on the robots' necks and hang them off the bridge as they scream at the top of their lungs. After talking to Kirill and getting information about where the rally will happen, the detectives rush to get to the meeting place. When they get there, only the robots are there. Jana makes a necklace using the memory chip they got from Alex and puts it on Igor. Igor brags about the chip and shows it to the street cameras. When Georgie comes home, he finds Detective Varlamov waiting for him. He says Georgie is suspected of concealment and tampering with evidence about Sergei's death. When Detective Varlamov is about to start the search, Arisa tells Georgie that the detective didn't bring a court-issued warrant. The detective doesn't have a choice but to leave. Marina, who monitors them using the hidden cameras, sees what happened and thinks they now finally have something to use against Georgie. Arisa tells Georgie he doesn't have anything to worry about. She already hid the jacket because she knew its evidence. The final scene cuts to Kronos where Igor Meslevsky looks at the bot he just created. He has named it Arisa too, and is eager to show off his creation. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave 1000 likes or 100 comments if you'd like us to continue part 2. Thank you.